Impeachment August is over. No shame if you didn't know it even began. Donald Trump is still the President of the United States. And the 2020 election will soon move from a sideshow to the main event. So what happened? Have Democrats blown their last chance to impeach Donald Trump? Let's start with what impeachment is. It's a process set out in the U.S. Constitution for removing a president from office on the grounds they have committed treason, bribery or other high crimes and misdemeanors. For a president to be removed from office, they must be impeached by a majority vote of the U.S. House of Representatives. Then they must be convicted by a two-thirds majority of the U.S. Senate. No president has ever been removed from office using the process. We won't dwell further on it, but if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, head here for a full breakdown. Here's the deal with impeachment August. There have been calls to impeach Mr. Trump since the day he was sworn into office. Not enough of those calls have come from the people who actually have the power to do it, congressional Democrats. Impeachment August was an attempt to change that. It's a joint project from 4 influential progressive groups to encourage voters to pressure more Democratic members of Congress to officially announce their support for impeaching the president. Movion is one of those organizations, and David Seavers has been coordinating its involvement in the project. He pointed to Robert Mueller's report as evidence for why Donald Trump should be impeached. The activities listed there, if anyone other than Donald Trump had done them, they would be facing criminal charges, and Congress has a responsibility to step up to the plate and pursue those to see whether or not they were impeachable offenses, Mr. Seavers said. Why now though? Congress just finished its long summer recess. Members of Congress were back in their districts talking to voters, hosting town halls and touching base with the people who voted them into office. That was the perfect time to change their minds on impeachment, according to Mr. Seavers. Another reason, time is running out before the 2020 election campaign begins. Congressional reporter for Politico Kyle Cheney said some members of Congress think unless impeachment begins in the next 3 weeks, it's off the table for good. Some say the unofficial deadline is the Iowa caucuses in February 2020. I think we're really looking at early next year will be a hard deadline for these guys. And probably sooner than that, he said. There's a simple reason Trump hasn't been impeached. Voters don't think he should be. Poll after poll after poll after poll have found a majority of Americans don't support impeaching the president, despite his historically low approval ratings. I mean, the numbers are not there, Cheney said. Those polls have been used by Democrats who are in competitive districts to stop short of declaring their support for impeachment, fearing they'll lose the votes if more conservative constituents. What you hear from the pro-impeachment side is that the impeachment against former President Richard Nixon was very unpopular at the outset. But once you got the process going, once you started the real serious investigations for impeachment, the public opinion rose in favor of impeachment dramatically, Cheney said. But something important changed last month. More than half of Democrats in the House now support launching an impeachment inquiry, according to the Associated Press. Counts vary, but Politico also says 137 Democratic representatives now publicly support impeachment. That's up 20 members from July 30th. It's still short of 218 members that would need to vote yes in order to launch the inquiry. The 98 remaining Democrats and 197 House Republicans would handily defeat any such motion. But it's a significant milestone, and one Stand Up America, another group involved in impeachment August, is paying attention to. The momentum is definitely building, spokesperson Ryan Thomas said, when they'd Congress come back in September, we're really going to be pushing hard for them to start an inquiry. Things looked most promising when Representative Ben Ray Lujan declared his support. He's the 4th highest Democratic representative, so pundits read it as a hidden signal. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi was changing her mind. Democrats are in a bit of a bind. Those polls that show the majority of Americans aren't in favor of impeachment, they show a majority of Democrats are. A recent Monmouth University poll showed only 35% of voters want the president impeached. but that number soars to 79% among Democrats. The choice isn't an easy one for Democrats. Launch an impeachment inquiry that their voters want, but the wider American public does not. Launch an impeachment inquiry to appeal to the wider American public, but upset their voters. Cheney says Democrats are afraid. I think they're just very afraid and very cautious about what happens if Congress is going too far. Will they, voters, punish us, even despite Donald Trump's unpopularity nationwide? Could we end up actually helping him to re-election if we do this? He said. Cheney says impeachment is pretty unlikely to happen unless the de facto party leader is on board. When you see people like Lujan and other powerful Democrats who are close to Pelosi start coming out, that's why you might say, oh, maybe this is sort of a subtle nod that Pelosi is giving, he said, but really, it's not going to be ambiguous. She's going to say this is the direction we're going in and then it will happen. Is there any incentive for Republicans to move? So far, only one House Republican has voiced support for impeachment. And guess what? He felt he had to leave the party to do it. Even if impeachment did pass the House, it'd almost certainly be quashed in the Republican-controlled Senate. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has broad powers to determine the shape and length of the impeachment trial. I think it would be disposed of very quickly, said Republican Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham. Why on earth would we give a platform to something that I judge as a purely political exercise? Republican Senator Thom Tillis said. Ultimately, two people will decide if Trump is impeached: House Majority Leader Ms. Pelosi, and the President himself. Here's Cheney on Mr. Trump. His antagonism of Democrats, when it crosses certain lines, inspires these guys to move a little more in that direction, he said. It's only going to grow the more Trump pushes divisive rhetoric and attacks on Democrats, and while it's important that more congressional Democrats than ever support impeachment, in the end, there's only one that matters, Ms. Pelosi. It's not going to happen as long as Pelosi remains against it. And I think you hear that even from the most ardent supporters. If Pelosi is not with us, it's not going to happen, Cheney said. So will this standoff end before the 2020 election? This is the million-dollar question, Cheney said. Just within the press galleries we sort of go back and forth every other day. Today, impeachment isn't happening. But Donald Trump's biggest opponents aren't giving up on tomorrow. Yet, let's block ads. Why?